Welcome to Hockey Inside Out. I'm your host, Adam Susser, coming to you from downtown Montreal with Stu Cowan, CBC Daybreak's Andy Bennett, and special guest, Georges Larac. Once again joining us in studio, let's take a look at today's topics of conversation. Number 1, who do you think Carey Price was more angry at after being pulled against the Sharks last Friday night? His coach or his team? Number 2, should Marc Bergevin trade for a center or wait until Alex Galchenyuk comes back from his injury? Number 3, will Brendan Gallagher ever score again, or is that it for him? Number 4, our viewer question of the week asks, do you think the Canadiens would have drafted Mikhail Sergachev if they had not traded PK Subban? And number 5, with Jeff Petry's stellar play as of late, do the Canadiens need to re-sign Andrei Markov after the season? Let's start the show. On his way to the dressing room after being pulled during last Friday night's game against San Jose, Carey Price flashed a stare towards the Habs bench that can best be described as whatever you can think of that's colder than ice. Who do you think Carey Price was more angry at after being pulled against the Sharks? His coach or his teammates?
I would think he should have been more mad at his teammates because they didn't show up in the first period. They were outshot 13-5. They left him by himself. This came after the game in New Jersey when nobody came to his defense after he got ran. I think he would have preferred maybe his coach had either pulled him after the first period or maybe after the second period rather than have him skate out during the middle of a period. But I think he should have been more angry at his teammates.
Actually, it couldn't be his teammates because how many times Carey Price has been stolen games for us, and he's so used to not having the players in front of him doing the job. So he was mad at his coach because, again, he's the best player in the world. Getting booed at home, it's not something fun. And again, as you said earlier, he should have been pulled after the first. If he didn't do it, because if he pulled him after the first, nobody's going to boo or anything, right? So the way things went, he didn't really agree with that decision. It looked bad. So he started him, look, he's a competitor, and he was pretty upset with that. But again, I didn't agree with what he's done, even though he was upset, because, in Montreal, you do something like this, we talk about it today. Because, all you had to do, you face the music after the game, you talk to the media, explain why you did that, and there's no speculation. Because he didn't do that, he declined all the interviews that the media had requested for him. It made things much worse.
Because he was pissed off. I mean, do we want these guys to be like total unfeeling automatons? I think he was mad at his coach. I think he was mad at his players. I think he was mad at himself. I think he was just pissed off. I mean, we see Carey Price as this cool cat all the time. We forget that he is this competitive fire. He hates losing. We've heard him break sticks, not that often, but it does happen. And I think he was just pissed. I mean, you have to control your emotion because of the optics in this town for sure.
But remember, we said that he's a true leader and should be pretty much the captain of that team, and part of his responsibility is to face the music. Carey Price never been pulled for 2 years. The first time he gets pulled, we could accept and say, oh, it's okay, he's a true leader, but his responsibility to talk to the media and not hiding in the dressing room, it's aside because he's a winner and we're going to accept that. It's unacceptable in Montreal because people were talking about Patrick Roy, all that stuff, just because after the game, he refused to talk. If he would have talked after, he diffuses everything. A true leader phrase the music whether things are good or not.
What if he comes out and then he's still so fired up and ticked off, and then he says something that he regrets, and this whole thing is like pouring gasoline on a fire for another week?
He had a long time to cool down after he was pulled out, and we were waiting in the room afterwards. But we were waiting in the room afterwards, whether he was going to come, and the PR guys went in the back and they said he's not going to come out. But if he had come out and said exactly what he did the next day, just said I was pissed off, it would, as George said, it would just ended there. It would have ended, all the speculation would have been gone.
Nothing ends there in this city.
After every game, the PR goes to the player when there's requests from the media because the league could find the team big time if a player keep refusing interviews. They for sure went to him. He said he didn't want to do it. The Montreal PI, they're so used to it that they'll tell guys what's coming and what they could respond, but they'll never say, don't do it. Carey, I was even surprised that he didn't do it because he could have diffused everything, but he waited till after he got his 215th win to say, oh, everything is okay, because then he won. Should have done it before.
But he could have been so angry. It was still only 2 periods or period and a half after the game. He could have made things worse, no?
Look at what happened to Montoya. What did he do after the 10th, the 10 goal that we left him in, right? Mm-hmm. True professional. Carey is a true professional. He's a leader of that team. People look up to him. He's the face of the franchise. He has a responsibility. And because what precedent you're sending to everyone, if now you could avoid interviews when something bad happened, all the other guys could do the same, right? Mm-hmm. To us, to the people that pay to watch the game, people that pay to get the cable to watch the game on TV, and they want to see that press conference to see what their favorite player has to say about it. It's okay.
Okay. Do you think the media made too big of a deal over the stare?
Well, you know what? George made a good point there, and speaking as a player, but speaking as a journalist, people say, oh, you media guys get all upset, but the players are talking to the fans through us. So if a guy doesn't want to come out after the game, he doesn't want to come out after a game, but as George says, you have a lot of people paying a lot of money for tickets, watching on TV. They want to know what these guys have to say, and it's part of the job.
Maybe he feels like his players left him in there, like, hang to dry, so he was like, you know what? You guys talk to them tonight. I'm not dealing with it.
I mean, that's one thing, with Saku Koivu, when people have criticized him in the past, he was always there. Guys like that. Brendan Gallagher now is always there. There's certain guys, and Carey Price, as you said, he is a leader, and I think he should have been there after the game.
I don't know. I'm someone who, I need a lot of cool time whenever I get angry. Okay, he could be that similar type of guy. I think it's better sometimes if you're super angry, take a break, not say something you could regret.
But he gets paid millions of dollars a year.
I don't get paid that much.
To take that responsibility.
Good point. Okay, switching gears. It's been 2 weeks now since Galchenyuk has been out with a lower body injury. He's projected to come back, if all goes according to plan, in 4 to 6 weeks. Do you think it would make sense for Bergevin to trade for a center?
Before he was hurt, we were lacking already centers on that team.
Yeah.
So now that he's gone, of course we need other centers. It's remarkable what the team is doing right now with him hurt, still winning, especially like last night. It's unreal, but they need to address this problem of the top 6-4 that they need, because if they want to go far into the playoff, they're going to need that. It's good that Dano and all those guys are passionate and it's working out so far, but after Christmas, the second stretch of the season, close to the playoff time, it's not going to work. So we need to work on that, find ways to be better in their top 6, and that's center that we've been looking for 4 years.
Well, exactly. It's like if you think Marc Bergevin has not been looking for a center, a big center, somebody who's going to fit that role for the last, I don't know how many years. I mean, he's always got his eyes open for somebody that's going to be a big center that this team needs, whether or not Galchenyuk is injured or not. Like, yes, it makes it a little bit more acute right now that they're going to need that. And I totally agree. Like, I think after January is when we're going to see these injuries are going to start hurting if Galchenyuk doesn't come back in. But he's got, those feelers are out. I mean, they need somebody at that position. They need somebody there.
Definitely looking, but I think with them winning the way they have been, the panic, or not the panic, or the urgency to do something has calmed down. I don't think he's like, I have to do something right now. Philippe Dano hasn't looked bad as a first-line center, and Max Pacioretty, after the game against the Ducks, said all the guys on the team want to play with Dano. He said he's a really smart player. He finds open spaces, he gets open, and he's actually fun to play with. So he's definitely looking, but I don't think there's an urgent rush right now to do something immediately as long as the team keeps winning.
I mean, the idea of Philippe Dano, though, as a first-line center, does that not...
Yeah, is that sustainable? I mean,
but
really?
This guy was a former first-round draft pick. It's not like wasn't a good hockey player and can't play well. Is he a first-line center for a Stanley Cup team? No, but he's been able to fill in the role for now and done not a bad job of it.
He's a third-line center, and there's many guys in Montreal right now that is not in the right chair, but it's not their fault. There's so many injuries, right? And when you have a small team, that's what happens. You get a lot of injuries, and I knew injury was going to happen, but not 30 games into the season. That's a bad sign, because after Christmas it's even worse. So that's why it's important. Like we're all talking when we got Andrew Shaw that we got greater and bigger. He's not that much bigger than Gallagher. Mm-hmm. So that's why now with a small team, that's the result of it. You could be small, brave, or whatever, but in 82 game season, it's really hard on the body, and now they have to deal with injury. They're doing it well right now, but you can only do well so much. Right now it's easy to say, we could wait, but remember what happened last year with the injuries, where we start climbing, that we went down. Let's not wait till we go down again to say, we should have done this. Let's assess it now. So then we're never going to go down. We're going to stay high in the standing.
And Shaw plays bigger than he is, which increases the potential for injury when you have a small guy playing big. The same with Byron. They have a lot of small guys who play big, which takes more of a physical toll on them.
Okay, it's been 10 games now since Brendan Gallagher has last scored a goal. Do you think he'll ever score again, or is that it? Is that it for him?
The biggest problem with Gallagher is the fact that they signed Andrew Shaw. Before Andrew Shaw was there, Gallagher was in all his situation 100% all the other years. You can't have Gallagher and Shaw in the same team. They have the same role. Ever since Shaw's been there, his role has been diminished because they share duties in terms of in front of the net, power plays. And I think the team now, the way Shaw has been playing better. So he's taking some responsibility that Gallagher had before, and it's hurting his confidence, and you could see it. It's not lacking of effort. He's always there with Gallagher, but he doesn't have the same spark as before. Now we've seen Andrew Shaw, which I would have never thought. And I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I actually don't think that Gallagher with Shaw on the same team is going to work. They're too
Really?
much of the same character, and he's not the same that I've seen before, and it's not lack of effort. It's just that now Shaw is doing what Gallagher was doing before, and we don't need Gallagher as much. So I would use him as a chip to get a top 6 forward.
I thought it was interesting to hear Gallagher say after he kind of runs the goalie, which he said was run into the goalie, which he said was an accident. Whether or not it was an accident, it definitely put the Ducks off their game, and I think that's part of his role too. He gets under teams' skin. He gets them so annoyed that they're trying to like exact revenge and forgetting about other parts of the game. So I do think that he's still playing that role. But I also thought it was interesting that he said, I'm trying to get something along the lines. I'm trying to get the officials back on my side. I had a lot of work to do after my first couple of years in this league, so I wonder how much that's changed his play a little bit, where he's maybe lost a bit of that edge because he knows he wasn't getting any calls for a long time, and he's trying to make sure that when something does happen, he's going to at least draw a penalty from it.
You don't notice him as much as you used to. It used to be every time Brendan Gallagher was on the ice, you noticed him. If you're watching him in the press box, oh, there he is. He was always in the blue paint, falling. And the game against Anaheim, when he did run into the goal, it was like the first time I remember him doing that in a while. So he seems to be not playing his game. That's interesting what you said, though, about with Shaw sort of filling that role that he used to have.
And also, I could totally see him maybe try to change his style now, because look at Boston, what happened with Marchand. Marchand was the same type of player before, but he had the skill to become a scorer. He went from being a pest to 39 goals. Mm-hmm. Gallagher knows also, he's a smart guy. He knows that with his size, playing that role, you don't have a long career when you're that small to play like this, right? You have to contribute other ways. And now Shaw is doing it. So all that stuff plays in your head, right? So, you're not scoring, you're not agitating, the agitating doesn't work anymore. How valuable are you? It's really hard on him. I know he's a proud guy, the way that he plays. How many, you remember when things didn't go well for Pacioretty, how many people were saying that Gallagher should have been DC after Gil Lafleur said it should have been him? I don't think they're going to say that anymore.
You're bringing me down, George. Come on, man.
The other thing with Gallagher is only 1 goal in his last 26 games. I also wonder how much that hand injury last year might still be affecting him. His hand was basically shattered, his fingers, and I wonder if that somehow plays into the problems he's having.
Okay, it's time for our HIO viewer question of the week. This week's HIO question of the week comes to us from Tom Love from Calgary, who asks, do you think the Canadiens would have drafted Mikhail Sergachev if they had not traded PK Subban? What do you think?
Well, they traded Subban after they drafted him, but I think it might have played into Bergevin's mind. If he knew he was already going to get rid of Subban, maybe he was thinking about getting a defenseman. They always say they're just going to draft the best player available at that point, but you wonder, the few days later Subban was gone, you wonder if that might have come into his thinking.
I don't think Subban had nothing to do with it, because to be able to trade Subban, you have to make sure you get the right offer. And at this moment, I don't think that they were sure that it was going to happen, because it was last-minute deal, as we saw. But it's Markov, right? Markov is getting older. We knew we needed somebody to replace him eventually, so we had to pick the best player available. I'm pretty sure if it would have been a forward, we needed a top 6 anyway, so we would have took him. But at that point, there was no real top 6 that we know could have been gone, especially that Dubois was gone, and I know they really wanted him. Maybe that's also why they squashed the deal for Subban obviously with Edmonton, because they wanted that pick to get Dubois, and he was picked before. But again, I just think that they now slowly trying to find ways to replace Markov, and Sergachev hopefully next year could be able to fill that, because we could talk about it later, but I'm not sure if it's a good idea to, even though he's doing good this year, to sign a 38, 39-year-old Markov for another year.
Yeah, I think they are looking at their aging defense, and also you look at the drafts. I mean, a lot of times there's not a huge pool of NHL possible talent for those top picks. So they take the guys that they think might have a chance to, yes, it's good to get depth guys, but it's not like there's a whole big amount of choice, especially for defensemen coming through the draft, that they think are going to help the team. So I think Sergachev was a guy that's been, everybody was looking at this kid, so that was the logical choice for them to take.
Whatever the thinking was, it was a good draft pick, because this kid looked really good during training camp, and he's going to be a player in the NHL. He's going to be a good player in the NHL.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Jeff Petrie has been amazing on the blue line all this year. Do you think they will re-sign Andrei Markov at the end of the year for next season? Even for a year, George?
Well, for a year at the right price, they might, because he did so good again this year, and it's defined age again. It's amazing. He's been such a great professional and good for the Canadiens. No, I wouldn't be surprised to sign him again for another year, because I'm not sure if, I think if they do, it's going to be more 1 year, because to be honest, as good as Sergachev is going to be in the NHL, I'm not sure he's going to play in Montreal next year. I think that what we saw last year, there's a big gap. We've seen the rookie defenseman in Carolina that made it. Totally big difference. So it's hard on his confidence. I think he might need a couple of games in the American Hockey League still because of the timing and a lot of other things. But because of those reasons, and you look at Beaulieu that's playing there and there, not always up to par as we expected. And when you say Petrie was good all year, he was not good all year. Now there's a good flash. He's back. He's back being the defenseman that we've signed him after the playoff that he was unreal. We gave him that big contract. Beginning of the season, we haven't seen so much of him, but as of late, he's been back and been playing much better. Hopefully, he could stay that way. But again, with Markov, 1 year max.
But we do know Petrie's a guy who plays injured.
He had that big injury last year.
He's had some injuries that he plays through and only kind of comes clean with it afterwards. But Markov, the thing that concerns me is losing that hockey mind of Markov. And you know, physically, yes, he is getting older, but they still play him like upwards of 20 minutes a game sometimes. So I feel like if that, and we've said this last year too, if his minutes were dialed back a little bit, he still has so much to offer, especially for the young guys coming up on defense, and what he does out there just hockey sense wise. They're lacking in that a little bit.
And it's been so long since a Canadiens player played his whole career here and ended his career here. You know, Arturi Lehkonen was 3 years old when the Canadiens drafted Markov. And like you said, you know, you think Markov is such a smart player, if he would be willing to accept the number 5 or 6 role as opposed to top 4 and lesser minutes and maybe use him on the power play, then I could see him still being effective with the Canadiens for another year or two.
Okay. That's our show for this week. We want to thank our guests in studio, Stu Cowan, Big Georges Laraque, and Andy Bennett. We want to thank all of you at home. Thanks for watching us in 2016. We appreciate you tuning in every single week. We also appreciate all the feedback that you've been giving us throughout the season, because we really try and make the show as good as possible for you, the viewers. So thanks. We're taking a 2-week hiatus. We're going to be back on Thursday, January 12th, but we have some bonus videos that we'll be releasing throughout the holidays, so check our website for that. Have a happy and safe holiday season. We'll see you in 2017, Habs fans.